His voice isn't for everyone. Ask my wife. I love Randy Newman. The Beach Boys put that album out. It's contender for their greatest album. Driving that train high on cocaine. This is the blueprint right here. This song is the blueprint. Do with it what you will, and so many did. My name is Joe. These are just opinions. I am Joepinionated. Welcome again to the 25 best songs from 1970. No doubling up on the same artist or the same albums. A lot of multiple album outputs, so we might get a couple artists more than once this year. Playlist on the channel has 149 songs that I was considering for the top 25. The 25th pick was the hardest one to make. Song 25 comes from his debut album from Leon Russell. A big song for him, Delta Lady. Debut self-titled album, piano rock, boogie rock, Southern Cajun flair, Leon Russell. That one goes out to Jeff. I know that's one of his favorite songs. Leon Russell, badass pianist, session player, singer. Sorry, number 24, 25 best songs from 1970. We're going with Cecilia from Simon and Garfunkel. It's from their album Bridge Over Troubled Water, their last album together. And for me personally, I'm okay with that because I love Paul Simon solo stuff a lot more than the Simon and Garfunkel years. Cecilia is a track that kind of carried over from Bridge Over Troubled Water. I know that's an unpopular opinion. Check out my Paul Simon episode on this channel. Up next from Canadian folk legend Gordon Lightfoot, the track If You Could Read My Mind. Grew up on Gordon Lightfoot, heard quite a bit of it. Wreck Edmund Fitzgerald, Sundown, rest in peace, the absolute Canadian legend. Beautiful track. It's kind of funny up here in Canada, we had some Canadian kind of like electronic band cover this song. I can't remember what they were called. I can picture them singing it on Much Music though. What were they called? It's not coming to me. Gordon Lightfoot, You Could Read My Mind. If You Could Read My Mind. Up next from Pink Floyd, their album Atom Heart Mother. I'm going with the track Fat Old Son. My buddy Trist and Sonia, my friends from New York, took me to see Pink Floyd or Dave Gilmour at Madison Square Garden. I heard it live at the Dave Gilmour show, and that was sort of my first exposure to it. I wasn't really that familiar with Atom Heart Mother before that point, where Pink Floyd starts to put the pieces together, or just before metal. And this is a track that kind of shows that. There's a few excellent tracks on this album. I prefer Fat Old Son. Up next from Buddy Miles, legendary drummer, the band of Gypsies, comes the song title track from his album Them Changes. Them Changes. I love the version on his first debut record, and I also obviously love the version he does with Jimi Hendrix, the famous 4 live shows with the band of Gypsies, Billy Cox, Buddy Miles, Jimi Hendrix. There's 4 concerts they did, 2 on New Year's Eve 1969, 2 on New Year's Day 1970. My absolute favorite Jimi Hendrix performances, thanks to Tris for showing me those back in the day. And those 4 live concerts are my favorite. I love hearing Buddy Miles and Jimmy together. Regardless of the politics, they put out some pretty amazing stuff in that short period of time. Their version of Them Changes, the Buddy Miles track, Them Changes, one of my favorite songs off of that album. And obviously off of this album. The reason I bought this one on wax, one of the first records I bought, is Buddy Miles, Them Changes. Number 20 comes from Cat Stevens, T for Tillerman. This is Fôrça the album, going with Father and Son. I mean, Cat Stevens just knocked it out of the park with T for Tillerman, and the pop hooks on this folk pop album are incredible. Father and Son being one of the best ones, and also featured again on one of my favorite shows growing up, The Wonder Years, where I learned a lot of this sort of early 70s, late 60s music. Picking up the album myself later and sort of discovering it for myself in my early 20s. And great song, Father and Son, just sort of a beautiful track, if you have kids. And to my kids, check it out. Beautiful. A lot of knowledge in there. Cat Stevens. Next up, song 19 comes from the Allman Brothers' second album, Idlewood South, and it's a huge hit for them, Midnight Rider. This song will forever make me think of my friend Dorothy, who got up during COVID times when you're locked in at your tables at the bar trying to see live music in the early days. The music just went through Dorothy and she could not help herself. She had to make her way to the dance floor. When Midnight Rider came on, she could not control what this song does to her. And it was unbelievable. So shout out to Dorothy, and the core memory from forever was you moving to the dance floor. And that was great. Anyways, she got escorted back to her seat and stuff like that. And probably 2020. It was anyways, good times. Midnight Rider and the Allman Brothers, all-time banger. From the first to two albums, 1970 from the Grateful Dead, I'm going with the from Working Man's Dead, Grateful Dead, I'm going with the track Casey Jones. Casey Jones was the song that got me into the Grateful Dead. It was the first song that I really connected with and thought was great. Driving that train high on cocaine. I mean, what a hook. What a beat, what a rhythm, what a great song from Grateful Dead, who are firing on all cylinders at this point. Grateful Dead have a lot of incredible tracks, and this is certainly one of my all-time favorites. Casey Jones, you better watch your speed. Driving that train high on cocaine. Song number 17 comes from Paul McCartney's solo debut. McCartney. The track I'm going with is Man, We Was Lonely. Straight up Beatles is Paul McCartney in 1970. Feels like it could have easily made it on Let It Be, but it didn't. Made it on this album. So did about, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 other songs from this incredible album from Paul McCartney. I'm going with Man, We Was Lonely from this album. Only one song per album on this episode. And obviously there's many others. Junk is another one of my top contenders. Man, We Was Lonely, Paul McCartney. Guy can jump around through melodies like no other brother mother. This is a perfect example of that. Great Beatles track from Paul McCartney. At one point, the song was number 1 on the list. At number 16, we're going with David Bowie's first huge, great song, in my opinion, The Man Who Sold the World. Later on, famously covered extremely well by Nirvana at the MTV Live Unplugged. Might have even been the hit when Kurt Cobain passed away. It was right around that time. But I love this David Bowie version. It's incredible. You really see, I believe it's the last song on the album, you really see what this guy's going to become right here. Right at this moment, and then from here on out, solid gold, baby. David Bowie, one of the greatest ever, and one of his best songs, one of the best lyrics. There's a pretty cool lyric video. I'll put it in a playlist below for all the songs. Number 15 comes from the Beatles' last album, Let It Be. Many songs to choose from that album, and I'm going with Two of Us, the opening number. I love watching them work on it in that Peter Jackson documentary. I prefer Let It Be Naked, the strip back, less Phil Spector, wall of sound stuff going on. That Paul, he's got some good vision. Many songs to choose from this incredible album. I think it's an incredible album. The only reason it doesn't get talked about more is because it came out from the Beatles. The Beach Boys put that album out. It's contender for their greatest album. Sorry, Beach Boys. I don't want to beat up on the Beach Boys. Sorry, take that back. If the Rolling Stones nah. Anyways, okay, forget it. 14 comes from another legendary band, another all-timer, The Band. Their third album is Stage Fright. The track I'm going with is the W.S. Walcott Medicine Show. That's a banger. That's a well-known track to fans of the band. Rumor, close contender from that album. And then all the hits, Time to Kill. Stage Fright's a great album. Todd Rundgren engineered the band. Canadians, 4 out of 5 of them. All killer people. Love everything about the band. Very groovy song. W.S. Walcott Medicine Show was like a traveling show that came through his town. He actually, I watched the Last Waltz recently with my kid. That's their last concert, filmed by Martin Scorsese, and one of the best concert films of all time. And then they do like interviews with the guys at the time, and I'm pretty sure Levon actually talks a bit about that, or one of the guys does. And it was in Levon's book, This Wheel's on Fire, one of the greatest books of any musician I've ever read. We friends. And yeah, make some suggestions for some stuff I should be diving, some more artists. I've got 100 of them on the channel, but if you see something I'm missing, let me know and I'll get on it. Number 13 comes from Chris Christopherson and his debut album, and the song is Sunday Morning Coming Down. The beer I had for breakfast wasn't bad, so I had one more for dessert. How cool is that? Pretty damn cool. Amazing singer, member of the Highwaymen later on, great actor, incredible writer. Sunday Morning Coming Down, knocks it out of the park. Day one, didn't discover John Prine, but was there the night he was discovered and was there discovering him after John Prine's buddy gave him word. Steve Goodwin or whatever his name is. Anyways, Chris Christopherson, Sunday Morning Coming Down. Song number 12 comes from The Kinks. It's like their 7th or 8th album. And I'm not going with Lola. It's the album that has Lola on it, which is one of their biggest hits. But I'm going with the song Strangers. Such a great album, such a great song. The Kinks rarely miss. I think they're awesome. They're very punk rock in a sense. It's quirky, it's playful. If you don't know the track "Strangers" by the Kinks, that's probably the first one I recommend that you check out after this is over in the playlist below. All right, number 11 comes from another album from the Grateful Dead this year. It's just too good a song not to mention. From American Beauty from Grateful Dead, I'm going with "Friend of the Devil." Friend of the Devil. Friend of the Devil is a friend of mine. I take my time, and a friend of the devil is a friend of mine. Ween does an incredible tribute to Jerry Garcia called So Long Jerry. It didn't make their country album, but it's one of the best songs that Ween has. It wasn't actually pressed to wax. Friend of the Devil, all time, maybe the greatest song from Grateful Dead, certainly in the conversation. And yeah, the 11th best song in 1970. Deep year, deep year. Up next, from Elton John's second album of the year, Tumbleweed Connection, the opening track, Ballad of a Well-Known Gun. Good God, I love this song. One of my favorite tracks from this album. There's many to choose from. Elton John just does not miss from this album straight through to 1975, 76. This album's super funky, kind of roots rock country. You'll love it. Up next, one of the prettiest tracks on this year's playlist. It's a cover song on Harry Nilsson's album Nilsson Sings Newman. I'm going with Living Without You from Harry Nilsson. Randy Newman writes some incredible lyrics, incredible arrangers. His voice isn't for everyone. Ask my wife. I love Randy Newman, but only after falling in love with this album from Harry Nilsson. Nilsson is one of my favorite artists, period. Love his catalog, start to finish, and just, incredible voice, incredible talent, incredible arranger, very interesting life. One of the best singers, arguably of the 60s and 70s. He's up there with, the best of the very, very best. Him singing Living Without You, this is just an incredible arrangement, incredible studio album. Randy Newman really wasn't even that well known at this time. Nepo Baby, from famous arrangers back in, I think, Hollywood. I think his parents or aunts, uncles or something like that were all famous. All right, next up, song number 8. I'm going with the opening track from Black Sabbath, the song Black Sabbath. This is where it starts. This is where heavy metal starts, this song right here. I'm sorry. I've listened to the Deep Purple. I've listened to these other albums that are claims to the birth of heavy metal. This is really it right here. And this is the most important group in heavy metal and hard rock heavy metal history. They're the most important. We want Black Sabbath from Black Sabbath, the opening number. Dark, gloomy, heavy metal. This is the blueprint right here. This song is the blueprint. Do with it what you will, and so many did, and they all owe thanks to the Prince of fucking Darkness, Ozzy Osbourne, and Tony Iommi. Geezer Butler, Tony Iommi, Ozzy Osbourne, and Bill Ward. Black Sabbath. These guys are it. Arguably the greatest band of the 70s, Led Zeppelin, and their album Led Zeppelin 3, their third album in 2 years. We're going with the track Friends. It's between this one, Tangerine. I mean, there's everything start to finish, from a 5-star album from one of the greatest bands of all time, Led Zeppelin. Arguably now the Beatles are gone, and so Led Zeppelin's the greatest band in the world. John Paul Jones, Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, John Bonham, Led Zeppelin Desert Island Playlist episode on this channel, and more Zeppelin episodes to come in the future. I haven't done a song ranking or album rankings yet. We'll get to those. Number 6 comes from George Harrison's debut album, All Things Must Pass, the big triple album. Well, from his, technically, I guess his third album, but it's first away from the Beatles album. And I'm going with the track What Is Love. George Harrison pulls out all the stops on this album and has enough material on this album to, fill up 10 albums. I really wish he kind of spread it out a bit more, because this is certainly his best album in my opinion. It's just so stacked with bangers like What Is Love. All right, song number 5, going back to the Prince of Darkness, Ozzy Osbourne, and Black Sabbath from the second album, 1970, Paranoid. Featured lots of great candidates as well, including War Pigs. I'm going with Fairies Wear Boots. Just Tony Iommi going through, like, the blueprints of what heavy metal is to become, with every riff in this song. It's just ridiculous. It just kind of rolls through them one after the other, and Geezer Butler, ridiculous. Bill Ward, These guys just slay. Fairies Wear Boots. Yep. Song number 5. Song number 4, 1970. Had a hard time picking one, but one song per album from After the Gold Rush, Neil Young's first incredible album. I'm going with Only Love Can Break Your Heart. I was even thinking of Till the Morning Comes, 1 minute songs. It's such a warm album the whole way through. Only Love Can Break Your Heart. Beautiful. Pick any other song from this album and I get it. This is the one I've been jamming on lately, and this album's getting a lot of spins at my house lately. Only Love Can Break Your Heart from Neil Young comes in at number 4. All right, song number 3 comes from John Lennon from the Plastic Ono Band album, his solo record debut after the Beatles were done, or his second album, I guess. He had the 2 version thing. His big first real thing. Plastic Ono Band. I'm going with the closing track, God. Mother is an incredible track. Working Class Hero is a good track, maybe a bit overplayed. This album is incredible. I love this album. So raw, so emotional. And this song, I think inspired Dark Side of the Moon. I think that this album really inspired Roger Waters' lyric writing for Pink Floyd for the decade to come. And Roger Waters always cites Neil Young, Bob Dylan, and John Prine. And that's it. Those are his 3 guys. And this is 1970. This is what John Lennon is doing, one of his heroes. And I don't believe in Beatles. I just believe in me, Yoko and me. God is a concept by which we measure all our pain. Song number 2, going with another band that released multiple albums this year. It's called Cosmo's Factory, I believe is the name of the album that I'm going to pick a single from. And the single I'm picking from Creedence Clearwater Revival's album this year. One of their last albums. I think they had maybe 1 or 2 after this. The song I'm going with is Long As I Can See the Light. Long As I Can See the Light. I mean, Fogerty just gives it everything he has on this song. He does on every song. Magnetic singer and great guitar player. I like watching him rip on the guitar too. Really firing on all cylinders, of course. 1970. They've released like 5 albums in 2 years. King Gizzard level writing here. Productivity. As Long As I Can See the Light just showcases what a great singer this guy is, and it's not just straight funk on every single song, but or country rock, Americana. Number 1 though, I'm going with the prettiest song of 1970. Arguably the prettiest song of the 1970s, arguably the prettiest song of all time, from Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. I'm going with Neil Young's magnum opus, Helpless, off of Déjà Vu. There's in town in North Ontario. When Neil Young sings this on the last waltz with the band, that was my intro to this song for sure. Getting Déjà Vu for the first time and really giving it some solid spins. Such a great album and so many songs to pick from it. I got to go with my Canadian boy there, Neil Young, who finishes twice in the top 4. Pretty ridiculously on fire. Each song on the album just has a completely different flavor too on Déjà Vu. It's so cool. The 4 guys coming together. Helpless from Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. Déjà Vu. Number 1 song from 1970. Remember to check the playlist. A lot of songs, like I said, didn't make it. And It Stoned Me from Van Morrison was a close runner-up. Sugar Man from Rodriguez. Santana's Black Magic Woman. Joni Mitchell, Big Yellow Taxi. Mama Told Me Not to Come, Randy Newman. Oh Sweet Nothing, The Velvet Underground. Oh Sugar Tonight from the Guess Who. Ree Hancock's Fat Mama. Parliament. Little Old Country Boy. Beach Boys, Forever. That's the one in Full House. Liver Splash from the Meters. Signed, Sealed, and Delivered from Stevie Wonder. Willin' from Little Feat. It'll show up later when it's Lowell George on the slide guitar, not Ry Cooder. And last but certainly not least, Ain't It Funky from James Brown. So that's it. That wraps it up. 1970s top 25 songs. Remember to like, comment, subscribe on the channel. Remember to be normal, live and let live. Start the conversation. Let me know in the comments what you'd like to see more of, where I got this wrong, how I screwed up. Maybe buy me a coffee on the little thanks link there. I'm sorry I'm a little low on facts and high on opinions. Respect to Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young for writing one of the prettiest songs of all time. Helpless, Neil Young. Respect to Canadian Neil Young. We out.